Welcome to this edition of Real World Business Law. I am Todd Castleberry. I'll be hosting today's discussion as we are joined by Kristin Zech. Kristin, good to see you.
Hi, Todd.
We've got a very important, complex, even I'd say somewhat chaotic discussion to take place today in COVID-19 and creating the new normal for businesses. And the CDC came out, May 13th?
That's correct.
With new guidance for those that are fully vaccinated. Now, first off, I'm fully vaccinated.
I'm fully vaccinated as well.
And the good news is in the DMV, we're doing very well with the overall population. We got a ways to go, so hopefully more folks are going to continue to get vaccinated. So I want to read to you what was issued by the CDC. And you're going to break down how this is impacting businesses and things that you need to know and consider here as everybody works to try to figure out what the new normal is going to be. So directly from the CDC, when you've been fully vaccinated, you can resume activities that you did prior to the pandemic. Fully vaccinated people can resume activities without wearing a mask, physically distancing, except where required by federal, state, local, tribal, or territorial laws, rules, and regulations, including local businesses and workplace guidance. Therein amongst that word salad, Kristin, comes into, so what does that mean if you're running a business, and a lot of questions that need to be answered here. So what would you advise from as a starting point here, knowing how that's such a broad-based statement there?
I think the first thing we have to do is acknowledge the situation businesses find themselves in right now. For about the past year, we've been dealing with mask mandates at the state and local levels. It's been clear what you have to do. People have to wear masks if they're indoors, if they're not socially distant. On May 13th, the CDC kind of threw that on its head for a lot of businesses and individuals, and now trying to figure out what to do. Todd, as you've pointed out, a lot of people are vaccinated. Approximately a little bit less than 60% of the eligible population in the U.S. has received at least one dose as of right now, and that's about half of the total population.
And as actually 61 and change now. We had just got the latest number, so we got another percent, so we're well on our way.
The question becomes, because the CDC has lifted those restrictions only for vaccinated individuals, how do businesses deal with this? And there's really two components that we have to discuss today. One is, how does a business deal with this in terms of its employees? And second, how does a business deal with that in terms of its customers who may be coming to the business?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, very important. So let's take it from the beginning then. And vaccines and folks that aren't vaccinated. What can they smartly do? What can they legally do? What do you advise within the context of the workplace versus those that may not want to be vaccinated for whatever reasons?
Are we talking about employees or are we talking about customers?
Let's talk about employees first.
Okay. So certainly businesses at this point are able to require that their employees be vaccinated and that they require or they present proof of vaccination. There are some exceptions for employees who may have medical restrictions or religious accommodations that need to be considered. But aside from that, generally speaking, employers are required to do that, are permitted to do that, not necessarily required. The question becomes for employers, it's one thing to say, are you vaccinated? May I see proof? It's something else to start inquiring as to why an employee is not vaccinated. There we have to tread a little bit more carefully.
But I can ask, if I own the business, I can ask my employees to, A, are you vaccinated? And B, show me proof?
That is largely correct. There are some states in the United States where that's probably not the best advice, but certainly in the DMV, that's not going to be an issue.
Okay, so relative to the two exceptions are based on an underlying medical condition as proven by a doctor and for religious reasons as a conflict for your personal religion?
That's correct. And those would be approached from an employer's perspective in terms of general EEO approaches. So if you have a medical condition that would qualify under the ADA for protections, that's how it would be approached.
And as far as masks within the workplace, and what I have found fascinating here, that even within our office building here in Tyson's, that the sign changed on Monday or Tuesday of this week that you no longer needed to wear a mask if you were fully vaccinated. And let's face it, right now everything is really based on the honor system. A major big box retailer that I was surprised to see earlier this week, they too had already relaxed their restriction with the same notice, while some right across the street, restaurants and otherwise, they're playing by a different set of rules. So how does that manifest itself, and is it still up to not only the local localities? We know there's a big difference between what's going on in Montgomery County, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, et cetera, and as that applies to local businesses, what would you advise?
Again, I think this is where the confusion comes in. Up until mid-May, we had mask mandates in place. It's easy to follow a mandate. It's a clear, bright line rule. With the lifting of that, we are in a situation where a lot of this is falling on businesses to determine what they're going to do. Again, the CDC guidance says that individuals who are fully vaccinated, and remember, fully vaccinated is having received either 1 dose of the J&J or 2 doses of the Pfizer and Moderna and being 2 weeks post that vaccine, that individuals who are fully vaccinated don't need to wear masks. Individuals who are not vaccinated, which is approximately 50% of the population right now, are still required to be masked in these settings. What that means is that businesses have this group that they're trying to figure out how to address this. In many ways, businesses can make their own decisions. They can decide that they're going to have their employees be masked. They can decide that they're going to require masks for customers and clients that are coming into their businesses. Again, there are some restrictions there
Sure.
in some jurisdictions, but largely in this area, that's permitted. And certainly there are some industries right now that still require masks. Transportation, healthcare, schools. Again, remember, with respect to vaccination, children under the age of 12 are not even eligible at this point. So industries that are working with and businesses that are working with children under the age of 12 are still going to be almost totally masked.
That is a great point, because you are not getting on an airplane without a mask today.
No, you're not getting on an airplane, on a train, or on a bus.
And researching through the CDC and their release of information, and this is not one size fits all as to what the federal mandate is and how it applies to certain industries and certain businesses. So this is where it's very important for each individual business, not only to your two constituencies, as you have pointed out, your employees and your customers, and what is best for your business so that you don't have any liability issues.
And I would note, too, that those two different constituencies may have different requirements at this point. You can have a situation where you require your employees to wear masks. Maybe there are concerns among the employees. Maybe it's an image that you want to portray. Maybe it's just a safety issue from your perspective, while not necessarily requiring masks for customers or clients who are coming in who are fully vaccinated.
So assuming we get to, I know a couple of businesses that were requiring their employees to be, they were not going to allow you to work there if you were not vaccinated, because they were told by the state that their capacity to come back faster and at full capacity would be based upon that. So within the context of that particular scenario that I know to be a real world case in which this business was saying, hey, this is vital to me staying open and getting back to some sense of normalcy here. So if you want to work for me, dealing with the public on a very intimate basis, you need to be vaccinated. And I know a couple of people that worked there said, no, I'm not interested for whatever reasons. Does he have the right to terminate them?
Yes, he does. The EEOC has been very clear that an employer can mandate vaccinations unless there are exemptions that are protected under law, for example, disability or a religious exemption. I think where the bigger question comes up in the future now is we no longer have these mask mandates. And in some cases, there were individuals who could not wear a mask because of medical conditions. So you had employers who were in the situation of trying to comply with the ADA and accommodate their employees' medical condition while also facing a state mandate that required masks. Let's not forget that the U.S. is doing great with our vaccinations right now. But worldwide, we have a number of countries that are facing COVID surges and where vaccination rates are very low. We have a very transient population in the DMV. We have a lot of people traveling. We also have a number of variants that are circulating throughout the world right now. So within this context, there's a lot going on. There's a lot we understand about COVID. There's a lot that we still don't. And certainly, I think that was proven on May 13th when the CDC made its recommendations with respect to vaccinated individuals. At the end of the day, I do think while we are in this interim ground of trying to come out of COVID, there has to be an element of compassion and understanding in what people are facing and their own comfort levels.
Kristin, great word, compassion and patience. And while we believe there's light at the end of the tunnel, we're not. There's still quite a bit of work that needs to be done, and again, from a position of being cautious and smart as a business.
We're getting there. We're not there yet. And I think as we continue to evolve and hopefully come out of this pandemic, we're going to have to continue to adapt, and businesses are going to have to continue to adapt to the circumstances, both guidance from the government as well as the circumstances of their employees and their constituents. Customers.
Well, great information. This is a very important discussion that everybody needs to really take heed to, because this is changing almost on a weekly basis now, and everybody looks forward to getting back to normal. I don't think we're ever going to go see that fully again, but hopefully we're making dramatic progress in the right direction.
We're creating our new normal.